We're now going to build the internal splineIK system for the tongue. I'm going to hide my geometry again for my head. Control H. And we're going to build a splineIK going through here. Now, a splineIK requires a curve that it's going to control off of. So I'm going to go into my Create Curve Tools, and I'm going to the CV Curve Tool Options. And inside here, you have to be in cubic, because if it's a linear, which is all your controls you've been creating, the splineIK system will break. So we'll go into cubic, and what I'll do is I'm going to hide my geometry. I'm just going to hide all polygon geometry, and I'll hold down V to snap to each point. So I'll make 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And we get a curve that's generated. I hit enter. Now what's going to happen with this curve is all the CV points on this curve is going to actually eventually control all these areas. So we're actually making 4 control points on here. So we'll go into here. I'm going to call this center tongue CRV for curve. And we're going to apply a splineIK. Now the splineIK is under skeleton. Create IK spline handle, and we're going to go into the options for this. Now by default, we have root on curve, which should be left on. Auto parent curve, which pretty much is just going to take this curve and parent it under system. We don't need that on. And then finally, the big one here is the auto create curve. We don't want this on because we're going to provide our own curve because we just created it. So now, just like creating other IKs, you see how we have a little reticle that's there. I'm going to select the first joint of our tongue, hold down Command, select our last joint. So if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, I can't move my mouse off of it, but it says IK spline handle tool, left mouse button click, curve for handle. So it's waiting for a third thing. So I'm going to move down here and click on it, and boom, it creates a splineIK. So this is going to be my center tongue IK, like that. And unlike all the other systems that are IKs, you typically can grab or handle and move it around. You can't do that with this system. What this system does is this curve here is now driving the tongue. So I just went into, I selected my curve and went into control vertex mode. And these components in here, it's going to be kind of hard to select this. If I translate this, you see how it moves up and down, which in hence, when I bring back my geometry, will move the tongue up and down like that. And I can pick walk up and down these, and you can see how I can do this. Oops. Like that. And I can move those around. I'm going to undo those so it goes back. That'll give me different control over it. The problem is that can't be animated. I need to have something that animates those different points on here. And to do that, we're going to make something called a cluster. Now, clusters are deformers that you can connect to components, which could be edges, faces, or verts, or CVs on geometry to grab a handle on them. So I'm going to go and I'm going to select my curve. I'm going to go up to modify. Actually, sometimes I get the wrong one on here. It's actually, I believe, is under select. And there's an area that says cluster curve. This will cluster the whole curve as it goes on. So I click the button and then boom, it clusters the curve. And now, in very short notice, I have handles I can grab to move those areas that are clean values on there. And I will eventually have more podcasts talking about different options you can do with splineIKs, the curves we generate, and the clusters. But this is the pretty quick and dirty. Let's get right into it. So I'm going to name these center, and this is going to be tongue 01, and this is clust. So that'll be my naming convention for that. So you notice I'm using the same tongue naming convention through all these. This is my second cluster. That's my third cluster. That's my fourth cluster. Okay. I do warn you, if you actually happen to run this cluster curve command on this curve more than one time, it will generate multiples on here. This is pretty much done. I wanted to show you this last thing that happens. Like if I delete these, it's not destructive. You can delete clusters and then recreate them at any time. But if I go in and I say select and cluster curve, it's actually going to generate twice as many on it We got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we get 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't need those other ones. It only happens after you've actually run that command once on it. If I run it again, it'll have 3 times the amount. That's just a bug inside of it. But I wanted to show you, in case you actually happen to do that, that it's not bad to delete clusters. You can do them at any point. They just sit on top. Okay, so that's pretty much our internal system. And obviously, we're not going to want the animator to mess with this, so we're going to have to build a control system to manipulate this better.